All right, who's ready for reviews? No one? Okay, good. Here you go. MG Braun, Operation Atlantis, 1964. JF Rivken, Silverglass, 1986. Tight Case, Edward J. Hogan, 1987. Go. Up first, this 1966 edition of MG Braun's Operation Atlantis. Cover art by Ron Lesser, which we know because we own this that we got from menspulpmags.com. The Art of Ron Lesser Volume 1, Deadly Dames and Sexy Sirens, which features his paperback cover art. Like this, there's the cover. This is a wonderful resource, has other great paperback covers. We will go through this one day, but not today. All right, so MG Braun, Maurice Gabriel Edouard Brault, was a French author of detective and spy novels, publishing 171 stories from 54 to 84, including a whopping 75 of his Al Glenay spy series, this, including a series entry called License to Kill in 1965, many years before the James Bond movie. He's obviously inspired by James Bond, but maybe the influence went both ways. I don't know. Operation Atlantis was originally titled Action de Force and was published in 1964 in French. There have been 4 English translated versions of the Al Glenay series. They are Operation Atlantis, Apostles of Violence, Operation Jealousy, and The Girl from Istanbul. So Operation Atlantis was originally published in the Cold War era of the 60s, starring French spy Al Glenay and his CIA buddy, Jeff Cavazos. So the basic premise of this is Alan Glenn in Berlin looking into the Russians who have created this secret missile base in the lost city of Atlantis. Is it the real lost city of Atlantis? I don't know. It was kind of confusing. So the mystery takes off when an Atlantean professor, an expert in Atlantean history, is killed. The French and the US think that it's the Russians, and it has something to do with this mystery weapons base in the lost city of Atlantis, which is awesomely ridiculous and kind of a crossover of paranormal and espionage fiction. In the beginning, we meet a ton of characters. There's a point of view from a serial killer assassin, and there's hookers and just a million people, generals and lieutenants and English and French and German. And it's very daunting at first, but then it quickly just weeds down to 4 central characters: Jeff, Al, a lady of course, and a Russian revolutionary who's trying to overthrow the communist government from inside of Russia. The characters are kind of cartoonish. The CIA guy is the man. He's the baddest dude. He's huge. He kicks ass. He knows everything, and he always seems to be one step ahead of everyone. The Al, the French spy, just kind of seems to be along for the ride. And I was kind of surprised that he was the main character because the CIA guy is the main character. He's the guy who kicks ass. Al's just kind of there. But it's from his perspective that the story is told. The Russian revolutionary guy, his character was the most believable as he was just kind of irresponsible. He had a cause and he was willing to do anything for it. And he was very desperate. And I thought that came across really well. There was a female character. Actually, there's 3 females in this book. One is a prostitute, and the other 2 get raped. So, not the best book concerning women. So they try to make the book sexy, have sexy parts, but it's like rape and sad stuff, and there's a lady crying about to hook up with Al the spy, and it's just a downer, and a horrible atrocity happens to one of the ladies at the end, including the Russian army. You go ahead and fill in the gaps. It was just not, I don't know if they thought this was sexy. Is this a French thing? No offense, French people. But it is definitely not James Bond. The good part is that the action is in abundance and the story moves like really quick. The U.S. spy is the man. He always kicks ass. He always has all the answers. And what really blew my mind is at the end of the book, he gives the summation to Al, the French spy, of what just happened. He explains like the whole plot of the book to Al at the end, to the hero, to James Bond. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on with that. So yeah, it was schlocky and totally exploitive, and it was really enjoyable. I gotta say though, I was hoping for some more Frenchness in it. This reads like a U.S. spy novel, and there's nothing to put it in the French world. Like when you read Maigret or something, it feels French. There's Frenchness to it. And yeah, the French spy is in Germany, and I don't know what you can do. I'm not French. I don't know. But there had to be more that the author could do to make it to be more French. I don't know. Whatever. So, if I had to give it a grade, it'd be like a C+. It's really high in action, and it does go really fast. It's really entertaining. And just the main character is kind of wishy-washy. And I don't know, I kind of felt like I was in the dark because I was from his perspective. So it was kind of, I don't want it explained to me at the end. I want to figure it out as it goes along. So thumbs up, hang loose. It's like a 75% thumbs up. Ooh, I'm shaky. I had a lot of coffee. Eee. All right, up next is this 1986 Silverglass, published by Ace Fantasy by JF Rivken. It is a swordswoman for hire on the journey of a lifetime. Cover art by Luis Royo. As you can see, we have a buxom lady warrior here in the spirit of Conan. The author, JF Rivken, is a mystery. I've looked and looked and looked on this thing, and apparently it is like a mystery going back to the 80s of who this actual author is. Now there's quotes on the back that say stuff like rousing adventure by, for, and about women by Jessica Amanda Salmonson, who is an author herself of female protagonist sword and sorcery. So I would say that's pretty credible that this is actually written by a woman if she's saying that it's written by a woman. So at first I thought it might be her, but then I looked and she has books published by Ace Fantasy around the same time. So why would she put a different name on it? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know who the real author is. So, all right, so Silverglass was a 4-part series that ran from 1986 to 1991. And it stars our hero, Corson Bryn Torisk. Yeah. She's a Conan-esque type of mercenary. Travels around, getting adventures, kicking ass. She doesn't want to really be involved in the world, but she gets dragged in, and then she ultimately changes the course of the entire planet she lives on. So this starts off like mini D&D sessions in a tavern. She meets this harp lady, playing the harp. And then there's this drunk wannabe fighter who kind of accuses the harp lady of stealing, and then the harp lady gets Corson to defend her honor, which Corson doesn't want to do, but she also doesn't want to let this chump show her up, so she kicks his ass. They get kicked out of the bar. On the way out, walking down the street, harp lady comes up and says, "Oh, I need to hire you for something. Come back to my house. Let's talk it over." So it turns out the harp lady is actually Lady Natasha, who's part of the aristocracy of the city. She's been accused of murder. There's 2 family factions that are trying to rule the city, and she's in the middle of it. And it's a big kerfuffle, and she needs protection, and she wants to leave the city to go find her boyfriend in another town who previously had to leave because of all the drama. She's also known as the Witch of Rosslith. And of course, Corson like hates magic and sorcery, a la Conan. But Lady Natasha says it's all bullshit. She's not really a witch. So Corson's in, and off they go to the next town. Adventure ensues. So though it's laid back in plot, like the plot is kind of random, just to get this lady to the next town. There's lots of action and puzzling situations they got to get out of, and it's very much like Dungeons and Dragons. It's like playing this book was like playing D&D. They travel around, they camp out at night, they come upon bandits rob them, blah blah blah. You know the drill if you've ever played D&D. It's not only fights, it's puzzles you have to solve and traps you have to get out of. So the plot, not as important. The characters are what is the main part of this story, and it's the relationship of Corson and Lady Natasha. And at first there's kind of like animosity. It's kind of rough, and especially from Corson's part. And then as time goes on, they become best friends, and I don't know, it's cool. The relationship is not simple. It's kind of complex, and it was very endearing. And you kind of felt like you were hanging out with your friends. The way that they talked to each other, kind of gave each other shit, and look at this guy, he's hot. You know, they say stuff like that. And that leads me to my next point. The sex in this book, the sex scenes there's a lot. And I was really surprised by the first one, which was between the two ladies. I did not see that coming. And then as the book goes on, they kind of just hook up with whoever they feel like it, male or female. Okay, so I had this thought dilemma where I was like, you know, if this was written by a guy and he had the two ladies hook up for a lesbian sex scene, I'd be like, oh, dude, that's like trashy, man. Like that's get out of here with that shit. But because it's written by ladies, and I'm kind of assuming that maybe the woman who wrote it might have been queer, that it was okay, that it was actual, like, it had a purpose. It wasn't just gratuitous. But I don't know, I'm just, like I said, it's a conundrum in my head. And am I getting red? Am I getting embarrassed even talking about it? Yes, I am. So we'll move on. So while this is a series, it's not an epic quest like Lord of the Rings or Dragonlance or any of the thousands of other fantasy tomes and 10-part series of books that fat. So I didn't find this to be epic quest at all. It was just random, and I think it's more of a character-driven quest than so much as like destroying the One Ring. I mean, obviously there's going to be an overarching storyline, but I appreciated it for what it was, because I don't want a big, long story. I like the little monsters of the week. That's all I want, and that's kind of what this was. It was kind of like a sandbox D&D adventure with a lot of leading, strong female characters. That brings me to another point that I wanted to talk about. I didn't notice this when I was reading it. A little ashamed to say, but other online reviewers have stated that nowhere in the book are they like, Corson's tough, or you're a good sword fighter for a woman, or, you know, you're smart for a woman. That never once says that in the entire book. So that was, I mean, you know, I'm assuming from a lady standpoint, that's probably exciting. That they're not talking down. It's not, women are never demeaned in this book. So yeah, good. That was good stuff. You know, Silverglass, besides all that, it was just a fun book to read, sword and sorcery wise. And it kicked ass. And that's it. Thumbs up, Silverglass. All right, up next is 1987, St. Martin's Press, tight case, Edward J. Hogan. Some mafia crime book here. Embossed. Can we see that from the side? See how embossed that is? That's boss. So I couldn't find out much about Edward J. Hogan. It looks like he wrote this one book, as far as I can tell. He was an ex-undercover Federal Bureau of Narcotics agent and actually did go up against the mafia, which is what this book is about. So that's pretty cool. The real-life, real-world guy talking about this fictionalized story of something he knows very much about. And I also found a motion to exclude his expert testimony in a case, a tight case, from 2003. So is it the same Edward J. Hogan? I hope so, because that's awesome, because this book is great. So it stars federal narcotics agent Ed Fleming. He's in a slump. He can't make a case. He has an ex-pro football junkie snitch who basically hands him a mafia guy, a slipping mafia guy, dealing in drugs. The guy is a nephew of one of the main bosses in town. This is in New York City. Ed has him on the hook, and it's all about him like roping this dude in, trying to get him to flip on the family, and how high up he can get the mafia guys and take them down. But it's not going to be easy, as the mob has an inside man in the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, the FBN, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, who's giving away the game plan. So if I'm reading a book with this plot line from the 80s, I have a certain expectation of it to be gritty and ultra violent with testosterone-filled iron balls swinging to and fro. All right, maybe not that crazy. And this totally delivered. The narcotics agents in this book have no problem planting evidence, setting up illegal stings, just beating the fuck out of people whatever it takes to make the case. They're willing to do it. They drink on the job, like get wasted and try and arrest people, and it falls apart. And it's just this kind of like messed up chaos while they're working. And it kind of reminds me of that show, The Wire, where those guys are just drinking and busting the drug dealers in the hood or whatever. But obviously this is first. Everyone in this book has the nastiest disposition. And I mean like everyone. Like Fleming walks into a bar and there's just this random old man sitting there drinking, and Fleming happens to glance in his direction and the old man's like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Like for no reason. It's just, you just threw that in there. There's a mom driving like a station wagon with kids who's flipping people off in the road, and Fleming comes out of a bar one time and just steps in a pile of shit. Like why is the main character stepping in a pile of shit? I mean, it's kind of metaphorical, I guess. You know, or he could just be like, he just wanted to have the main character step in a pile of shit, and that's just how this book goes. And every little tiny bit of 80s New York grit this guy could throw in this book, he put it in there. This has to be one of the coarsest books I've ever read. Fleming is a dick to everyone, to his co-workers, to random people on the street, bartenders, obviously the mafia guys. Watching this guy plow through these people, I loved it. It was so cathartic, you know, and in society we have to be nice and you have to be cool and not get mad. And just watch this guy just do whatever the hell he wanted and beat the shit out of people, man, it made my day. It really made my day. In the real world, I mean, the guy's a jerk. You can't walk around and act like that. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, like, you know, fantasy-wise. So the mafia characters in this book are kind of the stereotypical, like, mooks you would expect. And I was kind of hoping for more depth to the mafia guys, considering that the author was he really knew these guys. He really knew guys like this. And then I was thinking, you know, like in the real world, these guys are probably just this dumb. They are these walking stereotypes. So maybe he was just making it authentic by putting them exactly like they were. In the book, they are very, very violent, almost to the point of like torture, horror, gore, violent. There is a torture scene in this that is horrendous. Like maybe worse than any horror book I've ever read. The gore in it is just insane. Plopped down right in the middle of the book is 2 back-to-back chapters of gratuitous sex scenes, and they are ridiculous, The one is with Fleming and his wife, and it's loving, but Fleming's still manly and whatever. And then the other one is with the mafia guy, and it's porno-y and a little bit like it's softcore. It's not fade to black. It's there, and it's totally pointless. It's totally just thrown in. It didn't need it at all, but I don't know. I enjoyed that it was there, not for the sexiness of it, but just that it was so ridiculous that it was there, that I was just like, this is great. He's stepping in shit, like the most unnecessary like sex chapters thrown in, not just like a couple paragraphs. The end of this book, it was satisfying, but the journey to get there was trash magic. It was just trash magical excitement and violence. It's Goodfellas, Sopranos, from the point of view of the cops. But the cops are just as ruthless as the criminals. It's like that heavyweight fight between George Foreman and Ron Lyle, where it's just these two gigantic dudes just trading brutal punches like nonstop the entire fight. If you haven't seen that, look that up on YouTube. It's one of the best boxing matches ever. Just total deprivation of morality. And if that's what you're looking for, 2 thumbs up. This book gets two thumbs up, Edward J. Hogan. You wrote 1 book, and you did it damn well, my friend. And that's it. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, like, subscribe,